Naruto, killing system turns Hidan into legend. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 16. This. Is it your blood succession limit? The ape flying sun chop almost didn't bite off the cigarette stick, although the ability to die is indeed very perverted, but this seems to be of no use. If you are caught on the battlefield, you must not become someone else's living test piece? Just like that, I still can't let you join the dangerous dark part. Sarutobi refused again. Hey! Who said it was just like that? Duan endured the pain and pulled out the black spear from his heart, bringing out a large piece of scarlet blood, and the corners of the eyes of the 3 generations of old men twitched. Your blood succession limit is more than this ability? Ape flying is quite interested. There are many abilities in the blood succession limit, but it is rare, such as the blood will evolve a variety of strange abilities. Yes, but. Duan hesitated, as if he couldn't say anything. If you have something to say, just say it. With your relationship with Tsunade, I will still trust you. Ape Fei said bluntly. Well, my strongest attack is a curse, which requires the enemy's blood as a medium to cast, and after being cursed, the enemy will take the same damage as me. Duan explained. What? And such peculiar means of attack? Are you sure you're not lying to me? Sarutobi's tone was full of doubt. This is not surprising. In the entire Hokage world, such a strange attack method is still unique. Only the flying section can use it. How could he know? Duan knew you would have such an expression, looking at 3 generations of old men. It's not that I don't believe you, but you are indeed a little strange. Your immortal ability, with the original Hokage's wood, can also achieve a similar level to you, but your so-called curse, I have indeed not seen a similar situation. You know, Ape Flying Sun Chopper is known as the existence of ninjutsu professor, and the ninjutsu he doesn't know about is really very little, and he is worried that Faden is just to enter the dark part to coax him. What's your relationship with Tuanzang? Duan asked deliberately. Ape Flying Sun Chopper. Very bad. Although he hesitated, he still told the truth. Danzo's current practice had already made the 3 generations of Hokage dissatisfied. If it weren't for the fact that Ape Fei still had the title of Hokage on his body, I was afraid that Tuanzo would have ridden on his head. That's easy. Duan ran to the place where the bloody March sickle fell before, picked it up, and walked back to Ape Fei, saying, I slashed Tuanzang's henchman with an injury in exchange for injury before, and I cursed him to kill, which should also be regarded as weakening Tuanzang. It is even possible to provoke its relationship with the Zhongshan family. It is not certain. Saying that, Duan laughed grimly. You know, the person who was cursed by him will not have a wound or anything, and the wound he caused to the other party before is not fatal at all. Then, the death of the wind will make people think deeply. It is not good to be executed or something, in the hands of Tuanzang, but it happens from time to time. Ape Fei rethought about it, and finally agreed with Duan's statement. This kind old man has been forced by Tuanzang to be a little uncomfortable. Tuanzang's radical approach is even more unacceptable to him, can frustrate his spirit, sacrifice a Tuanzang henchman. He does not feel that there is anything wrong. So, here I go. Duan plunged the sickle that had already coagulated blood into his leg, and the blood flowed down his thigh to the ground. For the dark red blood clot on the side that has long dried up, Duan can't get out of his mouth. Anyway, as long as the blood enters the body, the curse can be launched. Duan's right foot was stained with blood on the ground, drawing a cursed formation, followed by strange changes in the body, and the black and white evil god full of tyranny and killing aura descended. Ape Fei looked at the huge change of the flying section in surprise. He could feel the strange power on the flying segment, but he couldn't see through. Faintly, he had recognized the so-called curse ability of the flying section. Chatter. Tuanzang, welcome my little surprise to you. Duan's laughter was like a whisper from the abyss. Phew. The black spear only once penetrated his chest, his heart stopped beating, and time stopped flowing at this moment. On the other end, at the root base, Kaze was reporting to Danzo the strange phenomenon of his failure when he performed the heart-turning technique, and just when it came to the critical moment, suddenly, the wind felt a sudden heart palpitation, and the last time this happened was when he went out on a mission and almost died in an ambush. As a sentient ninja, he was naturally more sensitive to the threat of death than others. However, the next moment, the wind fell down with a bang in the doubtful eyes of Tuanzang, and the oil girl, smashed on the floor, and lost its voice. As a friend who has worked together for many years, the oil girl Jen quickly stepped forward to reach out to explore the breath of the wind, only to see him shook his head to Tuanzang with a sad face, and his friend for many years was killed under his nose. Tuanzang looked at the wind that died so quietly in amazement, and he suddenly thought of something, checked to see if he is poisoned. He suspected that Duan's scythe carried latent toxins, and the oil woman took the root with a poisonous hand, saying that it could be judged. The oil girl obeyed, pressed her hand to the back of the wind, and invaded the tiny poisonous insects residing in the body into the corpse of the dead wind, carefully sensing. A moment later, the oil girl took the root and said with an ugly face, "Master Tuanzo, the wind is he." "No poisoning, damn it." Tuanzong scolded secretly. If he died of poisoning, then Tuanzong felt that he was easy to deal with, but now, it would be much more troublesome. The wind was the elite of the mountain clan, and he died in his roots so unclear, they would definitely ask for an explanation from themselves. Tuanzo can't inject toxins into the body of the wind, which will not only chill the hearts of his subordinates, but once he is found, I am afraid that his crime of killing fellow villagers will make him fall into a quagmire from which he cannot break free and cannot turn over. "Send everyone from the roots, go check for me." "Who did it?" Focusing on that silver-haired imp, "I feel that he is not that simple." Tuanzang's face was like the sky before the storm, gloomy and terrible. Someone had already dared to frame his head, how could he endure it? "It's time to contact the dark son of the big snake pill." Tuanzang's figure disappeared into the darkness. Episode 17, That's Alright? Ape Fei was a little speechless. "What do you think?" The flight section is even more speechless. "Do you have to add some special effects? All over the body? Okay, go back with me and make sure, if the wind really dies, then I will allow you to join the Dark Division." After Sarutobi finished speaking, he used the teleportation technique to leave. "Damn, after every ceremony, I am covered in blood, my clothes are tattered, and the flaws are still obvious." Fei Duan complained. There is no doubt that the Death Division is powerful by blood, but the way to use it is also very simple and rude plus bloody, and the biggest feature is that it costs clothes. If you have time to take off your clothes and put them aside after a fight, and then perform ritual curses, the opponent will not give you that opportunity. Spit and complain, Fei Duan still chased after the 3 generations of old men. He couldn't wait to join the Dark Department, especially one of the tasks secretly issued by Tuanzong. He was even more inevitable. "How's it going, old man? I didn't lie to you." Faden sat in Hokage's office with a big grin, and rushed at the ape flying path who was examining the scroll in his hand. At this time, Sarutobi's hand tightly squeezed the scroll used to transmit the secret message. His mood was indescribably excited. Tsunade actually sent himself such a treasure, a guy who was invincible in some sense. However, Tsunade didn't know anything about all this. She didn't know what kind of cards Hida had, she just treated him as a lustful ghost. Such an unparalleled ability, for a ninja village, the meaning will be irreplaceable. If you can get the blood of other Hokage, doesn't it mean that even the Hokage can be cursed? When Ape Fei thought of this, he felt shuddering. The ability of the flying section is really a little scary, but such an ability is so suitable when placed in the dark part. There is a place where there is for killing, and such a place is where the flying section should really go. Ape Fei couldn't help but think so in his heart. "Kakashi!" With Ape Fei's soft shout, a figure appeared behind Ape Fei, quietly waiting for Ape Fei's instructions. Hidan looked at Kakashi with an animal mask in front of him, and sighed in his heart, finally seeing the real person. A young genius-level figure who created his own S-class ninjutsu at a young age, Raish. Now he has obtained Obito's left eye and has been called a copy ninja, although he is still in the dark part, but it is estimated that it will not be long before he returns to the light and leads his problem class. "Kakashi, the flying section will be handed over to you, let him enter the dark part with Itachi." Sarutobi said to Kakashi behind him, and he called Kakashi by his name instead of the code name, showing full trust in Hibi. "Yes." Kakashi replied, and then walked over to Hibito's side. Ape Fei's kind gaze looked at Fei Duan once, and said, "It's good to be yourself. If you enter there, I can't help you much." Fei Duan nodded gratefully. He was still quite moved by the concern of the 3 generations of old men, and thought about whether the big snake pill would attack Konoha in the future and change the outcome of Ape Fei's death. "Then, let's leave first, 3 generations of adults," Kakashi said respectfully. That's right. This is for you. I think this should be of great help to you." Ape Fei suddenly seemed to remember something and threw a small scroll to Fei Duan. Fei Duan looked at Ape Fei suspiciously. "I don't know what he means. To know his current attributeless system, the 3 generations must see it. That means that he can't learn ninjutsu. Then the scroll given to him by the 3 generations is worth pondering. This can be regarded as a meeting gift for you. If it weren't for your special physique, I wouldn't have given you this thing." After Ape Fei finished speaking, he waved his hand and signaled that the 2 should leave. After Fei Duan got Ape Fei's explanation, his eyes lit up, and he guessed that if Ape Fei really gave him that thing, it was really a mountain of kindness to him. Bowing deeply to Sarutobi Hinata, Hida followed Kakashi and quietly left. Sarutobi nodded with satisfaction. His eyes were still good, at least he didn't look at the wrong person. The dark part is destined to survive and have no sunlight, and under the dark forest is the base of the dark part. As a member of the Dark Division, then from now on you are not allowed to enter and exit as your true identity. You must wear a mask on your face, and if you are unfortunately arrested, then destroy your own body. This is the principle of the Dark Division," Kakashi said coldly. The cruel rule of the dark part is that if a task is assigned to you, you have to carry it out, whether you can complete it or not, whether you will pay with your life, and even in order not to expose yourself, you even have to dispose of the corpse yourself. Yes. Yes. Fei Duan echoed with another person. As for the person next to Fei Duan, it was the famous Uchiha Itachi, who was young and dressed in a strong suit, carrying a short knife behind his back, and stood beside Fei Duan with a grim expression, filled with the aura of not being close to people. Another genius-level figure? Hidan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. A Kakashi can create S-class ninjutsu ratchet by himself, while Itachi is a bug-level existence that single-handedly slaughtered the entire Uchiha clan when he was only a teenager. Fei Duan has to obey, two genius-level bigwigs standing in front of him. He feels a lot of pressure, and even he feels that he urgently needs a pair of blood-will eyes, just because of illusion. This thing is also extremely restrained for Fei Duan. The monthly of Uchiha Itachi is an extremely powerful existence in illusion, although it has not awakened yet, but it has to be guarded against. From now on, the two of you will be a squad. Let's get acquainted with it during this time, and in a few days, you will start the mission. Hidan and Itachi were both stunned. They didn't expect such a thing to happen, and the two of them were actually assigned a group by Kakashi. Fei Duan was stunned because, under his influence, the plot had taken a definite turn, knowing that Itachi had always been a lonely loner in Konoha, and had never seen him team up with others on missions. Itachi was stunned because he actually had a teammate. You must know that Konoha's suspicion of Uchiha is already very serious, and he is struggling to survive in the cracks as a double agent. When did he have such a thing as a teammate? In this strange atmosphere, the two became a squad of the Dark Department. Episode 18. In the small wooden house, two teenagers of similar age looked at each other awkwardly, speechless for a while. Hello, Fei Duan. Fei Duan was the first to break the silence and extended his right hand to his future comrades. However, this was obviously attached to the cold ass, and Uchiha Weasel coldly replied, Itachi. So he walked out. If it's okay, he obviously doesn't want to bring more with others. It's better to go back and train his well-behaved younger brother. As a younger brother control, you must have the temperament of a younger brother control. Fei Duan touched his nose awkwardly, a little speechless, and thought to himself, it is really a tsundere brother controlling attribute. However, it was good that the ferret was gone, and Fei Duan had time to watch the scroll given by Ape Flying Sun. Pressing to resist the excitement in his heart, the flying section carefully opened the scroll until it was fully spread, and the excitement of the flying section at that moment could not be pressed at all. Sure enough, it's 8-gate Denjia. Fei Duan exclaimed in surprise. This gift really caught him off guard, and the friendliness of the three generations to him was really beyond his expectations. The 8-gate Denjia is actually only A level, but it is far beyond the power of some forbidden arts. Open the door, remove the restriction of the brain domain to achieve the purpose of exerting 100% of the physical ability, overload the consumption of body energy to improve the attack and speed. After opening, you can use Epiranka. Rest, lift the limit of physical fatigue, overload the body energy to restore physical strength, and offset the fatigue caused by the energy consumption speed of opening the door. Xingmen, further increase the attack and speed. The body begins to become engorged and turns red, and the last safe zone of the 8 doors of Denjia, the body begins to emit green energy. Injury door, further increase the attack and speed. The body begins to appear damage. Enter the danger zone of the 8-door Duanjia, and enter the 8-door Duanjia state in the true sense. Dimen, fast enough to stir air to the ground when moving, faster than the speed of sound. Jingmen, you can put yourself into a semi-open buffer state, that is, maintain the green energy emitted after opening the door, but the body does not change at all to reduce its own consumption load and damage, and can instantly open the battle power when needed. After opening, you can use Towards Peacock. Shock, at the last door before the door of death, the body begins to emit blue steam generated by the evaporation of sweat, and even if the body is slightly touched, it will be extremely painful, and only one punch can severely damage the enemy. However, when it is lifted and turned on again, the pain will temporarily disappear and will not affect the battle. When turned on, you can use Day Tiger. Death Gate, the final door of death after use. After the 8 doors are fully opened, it is called the 8 doors Denjia Array. The body begins to emit red steam generated by blood evaporation, and has a power that is dozens of times more than the 5 shadows, and can be used in a way similar to air cannons to hit the air to generate attacks or air movement, which can be used for a short time until death or consume all life force at one time to release the power that is enough to distort space, only the energy fluctuations generated by the prelude to the attack. After losing consciousness, the body is like burning a carbonized tree and starting to collapse from the most damaged part. After opening, you can use Sunset Elephant and Night Kai. The opening of the 8 doors of Denjia is still related to the load capacity of the body, and a physical quality as strong as Kai, after the 8 doors are fully opened, can only briefly exert its strength, and then die. For Fei Duan, death is impossible, but its physical fitness is not enough to support the opening of the 8th gate, and even, according to the scroll, Fei Duan determines that his current physique should only be able to open the 5th door, Demon. On the top, he was able to open, but his body was afraid that he would immediately strike, lose his mobility, and wait for recovery. The immortal body does not represent the strength of the body. If he can have the powerful Mudan recovery ability of the original Hokage, then he can really walk sideways. Hey. Although it is not yet fully used, it is undoubtedly a great help for me, and in the next action, it is just right. Fei Duan secretly calculated the next plan of action. Joining the dark department was only the first step, and snatching all kinds of blood succession limits was his real purpose, and an opportunity would appear in front of him immediately, and it was an opportunity to seize the blood chakra eye. Reading the various cultivation methods of the 8-gate Dunjia, Fei Duan's practice of the 8-gate Dunjia finally summed up a few words: exercise with your life, it's as simple as that. Shaoli and Kai both train tons every day to maintain the state of the 8-door Dunjia without too much damage, but for the flying section, as long as he learns, he can open the 5th gate, and the greatly improved speed and attack are almost comparable to the combat effectiveness of the quasi-shadow level. If there was such a physical technique in the original Hokage period, I am afraid that the first Hokage would directly erupt 8 doors and open all 8, and the Banyi at that time was afraid that he would be hammered by the first generation. Fei Duan is still particularly impressed by Kai's terrifying explosive power that opened the 8-door Dunjia. That is a terrifying existence that almost kicked the 6-mode Banyi to death. At present, the person in Konoha who can't be pressed the most is probably Kai, the hidden god. Fei Duan thought secretly. In the root base, Tuanzong sat gloomy in the place that belonged to him, and in front of him knelt all the root elites, but it was these elites, but none of them found out what was going on with the death of the wind. This made Tuanzang, who has always been in the hands of Jiju, feel a sense of threat for the first time, and unknown things will always make people feel fearful, which even Danzo, who has always lived in the dark, is also unavoidable. Phew. Tuanzang let out a long breath, as if he wanted to spit out all the depression in his heart. I heard that silver-haired imp actually joined the dark part. The oil girl behind the statue asked. Yes, this is his information. The oil girl took root and walked to Tuanzo's side and handed Tuanzo a piece of tissue paper with a message about the flying segment. That's it. Tuanzong looked at the only name and place of origin on the paper, and was a little angry. This group of so-called elites, for so long, even the news of the opponent has only been obtained so little. What is the difference between this and nothing? The oil girl quickly knelt down on one knee and explained to Tuanzong. The subordinates are incompetent, but the 3 generations of Hokage have completely blocked all news about the flying segment, even the blood succession limit of the flying segment. So far, we only exist in its simple recovery ability. I don't know what other strange abilities there are. Damn ape fly. It seems that the only way to let that imp go to that mission is to be good for us, no matter what we say. Tuanzo thought about it and made a decision. Episode 19. Kill a Shainin, it's actually only 100 killing points. Fei Duan looked at the killing panel in his mind angrily. He had killed 5 ordinary people before to get 5 points, and now although the killing of Shainin has increased by 100 times, he still doesn't know how many killing points it takes to upgrade the blood succession limit. Host, fly segment fly. Strength, quasi-shadow level, not counting special abilities. Blood succession limit, none. Ninjutsu, spell death, blood transformation, heart-turning technique, 8 doors of Dunjia, instantaneous body technique, physical ninjutsu grouped together. Special, immortal body, perception. Weapons, bloody march scythe, black spear. Kill point, 105. This is the current state of the flying section. Since he obtained the 8-gate Dun armor, his strength has been judged to be quasi-shadow level, and after killing the wind, even the heart-turning technique with the wind has been deprived by it. It's no bird. Fei Duan complained that after mastering the heart-turning technique through the killing system, Fei Duan knew the flaws of this ninjutsu. This is a medium-distance release ninjutsu, and can only be released in a straight line. After the spirit invades the enemy's body, obtain the enemy's control, and if the opponent is hit, it will also affect their own body trauma, so it is more suitable for collecting intelligence, but if the mental power is not enough to be suppressed, it will be bounced back into their own body. If the spell fails, it will be a lot of fun, and the spiritual power will not be able to return in a short time, resulting in the inability to control the body, and can only be slaughtered by others. Such a ninjutsu is completely a chicken rib for the flying segment, but it is the natural ability of the mountain family, perception, which is still very helpful for the flying segment, and being good at observing in this world can be more like water. It seems that the killing system will not completely deprive the other party of all ninjutsu, but I remember that this guy also has a heart-turning puppet spell seal. Fei Duan killed the wind, but only deprived him of his famed ninjutsu and his own lack of instantaneous art. From this point of view, the killing system is still very picky, nothing famous, it is too lazy to capture, at least Fei Duan thinks so. Swish. Fei Duan turned his head to look at the door of the hut. Kakashi's figure had already appeared there, still dressed in a strong suit, carrying a short knife and a fox mask, only this time, he had a small scroll in his hand. This is your task. Kakashi threw the scroll to Hibi and left directly. Although Kakashi was curious about why Hibito was immediately sent out to carry out a mission as soon as he entered the Dark Division, as a member of the Dark Division, he obviously couldn't ask, but this matter, he always felt very strange, so he had to inform the 3 generations of Hokage. Kakashi knew very well how optimistic the 3 generations were about Hidan, and he didn't want to watch Hida be buried under the conspiracy of the Dark Division. Ha ha ha. In the dark forest, there was a sudden burst of rampant laughter in the hut below. I didn't expect Tuanzong to take the initiative to surprise me. Is it really doubtful to my head? Fei Duan muttered. Fei Duan looked at the mission scroll in front of him and saw that it clearly said, Assassination Mission, Target Uchiha, Stop the Water. Location. Why did Fei Duan enter Konoha so early? In order to strike first and seize the blood succession limit of the Uchiha clan. Now Danzo actually took the initiative to put the task in front of him. Can he not be excited? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and Shisui has always been committed to the peace of the village and the Uchiha clan. Even if he was ambushed by Tuanzo and robbed of an eye, he still remembers it. Such a character, in such a world, being hurt by betrayal is almost a certain thing, otherwise with the ability to stop water, how could he be robbed of an eye by Tuanzong? I'm afraid that this group of hidden people wants to sit on the mountain and watch the tiger fight, and the yellow sparrow is in the back. Fei Duan pondered. After killing the wind, his spiritual power was greatly enhanced, ordinary illusions were almost not afraid, and it was almost impossible for other heavenly gods to stop the water to use on him. Stopping the water is planning to use other gods to prevent Uchiha from starting a war with Konoha, and naturally it will not be used easily, so the threat that almost comes from stopping the water is much smaller. But there is still a problem. Tuanzang's eyes for stopping water are almost regarded as something in the bag. Let the flying segment go to perform the task, but want to borrow the hand to stop the water to get rid of the flying section. Even if the flying section fights to stop the water, then Tuanzong will inevitably attack himself. It's not that Fei Duan is afraid of Tuanzo, but he doesn't want to have a frontal conflict with Danzo now, and Tuanzo can't die yet. Uchiha's destruction mission has to be done by a radical like Tuanzo. If he dies, it may turn into a big battle between the Uchiha clan and Konoha in the future. This is not what Fei Duan wants to see, and Fei Duan wants to join the Scourge of Ujiba's Extermination clan, and the strong people of the Uchiha clan are in full swing, which is a large killing point. It seems that only after killing Uchiha to stop the water, will you deter Tuanzang by force, and then negotiate the conditions. Fei Duan has a decision in his heart. Even if he exposes his whole cards, he will participate in that action, and after experiencing the blood baptism of the Uchiha clan, he will have a qualitative change. At that time, a small Danzo will not pose a threat to himself at all, and he can also shift his gaze, put it outside, and after obtaining some merit, he can quietly wait for the beginning of the plot in Konoha. At that time, he will appear in Konoha and become an existence that everyone admires. The mission has been released, so get ready to start tomorrow. I can't wait for the eyes that stop the water. Tuanzo grimly ordered the oil girl. Yes. The subordinates will prepare to ensure that nothing is lost. The figure of the oil girl disappeared in front of Tuanzong in an instant. Leaving Danzo alone, sitting at the table, his chin crossed with his hands, not knowing what he was thinking, his eyes flashing with burning longing. Uchiha's eyes that stopped the water, tomorrow, will enter his eye socket, which has been blind for many years. The Uchiha family is also about to be destroyed. Episode 20. Early in the morning, Fei Duan put on the combat uniform belonging to the Dark Department, and brought the mask of the former cult leader, and a hideous Tengu mask covered Fei Duan's young face, only a silver hair was exposed. Hanging the bloody March scythe on his back, the flying segment walked out of the hut and ran to the world above the ground, heading in the direction given by the mission. Itachi, long time no see, how are you doing in the dark part? Shisui was about to go out, but he saw Uchiha Itachi outside the door, his best friend, who was also half of his disciple. Yes, long time no see, said Itachi wistfully. The two of them hadn't seen each other since he entered the Dark Division. Are you going on a mission? Itachi looked at Shisui, who was dressed up in a strong costume, and asked. Yes. In fact, he always felt very uncalm in his heart today, as if something was about to happen. The ferret looked at the water stop suspiciously. What happened? Need my help? Shisui smiled gratefully. It's nothing, it's just a feeling, I'll go first, see you tomorrow. Saying that, the figure of Shisui disappeared in front of the weasel's eyes in the blink of an eye, and even the ferret with the blood wheel I could not see the figure of Shisui clearly, and his instantaneous body technique had reached the peak realm. I must have thought too much. He is a genius who has turned on a kaleidoscope, how can there be any problems? Itachi thought secretly in his heart. Stopping the water has always been his leading sail, guiding him on the right way forward, and being his mentor and friend, but the ferret has always taken the water stop as an example. But what Weasel didn't expect was that today's side, the next meeting, would become a farewell between the two of them. By the small lake, Shisui sat quietly by the lake, waiting for the appearance of the mission target. The task he got this time was exactly the same as the task obtained by the flying segment, the same assassination mission. But the object that needed to be assassinated was just a betrayed member of the Dark Department, the flying segment. Shisui didn't know what kind of character this Hidan was, he just knew that he was right to follow the instructions of the mission, and his trust in Konoha was already a little extreme, which was why he was finally hidden by the group. Ding dong. The morning dew dripped from the tip of the grass to the surface of the water. A thin figure also appeared in front of the water stop with the sound of water, and he was the one who came to perform the task, the flying section. Hello, you just stopped the water. Duan stepped forward to say hello, but it was written in his mission, disguising and stopping the water to perform the task together, and taking advantage of his unpreparedness to get rid of the stopped water. However, Duan was still a little careless. Tuanzong wanted to let them both lose. How could it be possible to give Duan the opportunity to create a sneak attack, and even, Tuanzong had already taken the root people and surrounded the two of them in the shadows. Shisui looked coldly at the silver-haired boy in front of him. The existence of the Tengu mask made him only see Duan's eyes, and his eyes were full of unconcealed desire and greed. Although I don't know why Duan knows his name, he has long been used to dealing with various situations with ease. Are you my partner? The water stop also caters to the Tao. Huh. I'm your partner in this mission, my name is Duan, well, nice cooperation. Shisui stepped forward and stretched out his right hand, wanting to shake hands with Duan. Duan also walked up, stretched out his right hand, and at the same time the chakra in his whole body ran wildly, which, this is a good opportunity. While the bloody March sickle and the short knife clashed hard, and Mars overflowed, making a crisp metal clashing sound. Duan, fooled, stop the water, conspiracy. After a fight, the two quickly pulled away their positions, guarding against each other's next attack, thinking about each other, and immediately understood that they were all hidden by the group. This time the flying segment is not so painful. Stop the water to open, but the person who writes the wheel eye of the kaleidoscope, not a sneak attack, under the invincible defense of Susanoo, it is impossible for the flying segment to get his blood, plus the other heavenly gods who threaten him all the time. It is like a lion biting a hedgehog. There is no way to get down. Shisui felt a chill in his heart, a traitor who should not know his identity, but at this moment, he said his name, and he sneaked up on himself, which is completely different from the easy assassination mission mentioned in the mission. Danzo's goal is himself. Shisui instantly figured it out. I'm afraid that this silver-haired boy is just a guy who is being used. The widow and constant rotation in the eyes finally turned into the shape of 2 rounds of 4-cornered ninja darts, which is the kaleidoscope of stopping water, hiding the so-called strongest illusion, Bitenjin. Duan quickly lowered his head. Although the other heavenly gods are strong, they still need to look at each other when they start. Stop the water. I am Uchiha Itachi's new partner in the dark part. All this is a conspiracy of Danzo. Can you listen to me? Duan whispered to Uchiha Shisui in front of him. He thought of a way to be able to fight without blood. Danzo wanted to pit himself. He was not willing to strike at Shisui without being sure. After hearing Uchiha's words, the action of stopping the water stopped, but the scarlet eyes kept staring at the flying segment, wanting to confirm the truth of the matter. Duan stopped moving when he saw the water stop, and hurriedly said, now pretend to duel, let's rush out. After seeing Uchiha Itachi, I'm explaining to you. When the time comes, you will naturally understand. Now he only needs to find the weasel with Shisui and let the ferret determine his identity, so that he has the capital to have a calm dialogue with Shisui. Otherwise he can only fight against him, and once Shisui recklessly breaks out the power of the Sharingan, then things will be a little big. Good. Shisui pondered again, and finally agreed to the flying section. Immediately, a layer of green chakra appeared outside the water stopper's body, gradually condensing into ribs to protect it, and the bone hand formed by a chakra also condensed and formed, which is the initial stage of Susanoo, but the power is also not to be underestimated. And the flying section on the side roared, 8 doors Duanjia, wounded door, open. Unlike Kai and Shaoli, when the flying segment opened the 8-door Duanjia, the color of the body did not change, but the chakra airflow surrounded the body, and the increase in speed and strength was clearly felt. Duan took the first step, pretending to be invincible, and rushed directly towards the encirclement of the group, while Shisui was carrying the huge Susa and also chased after them at an amazing speed. Episode 21, Damn it. All hidden, action cancelled. Tuanzong, who was hiding with his roots, cursed secretly and ordered all the men to retreat. Tuanzong never expected that the water stop that opened the kaleidoscope riding wheel eye was so terrifying, although the huge skeleton giant was not fully formed, but the terrifying power could not be concealed from his eyes. Not only did he stop the water, but even the flying section also made him feel powerless. He was actually able to open the fourth door of the 8 Duanjia, the wounded door, and his body did not seem to have the slightest change. Apparently he was able to raise again and open the 5th door. And once the flight section of the 5th gate is opened, Tuanzong will not be his opponent, and in desperation, he can only temporarily retreat, watching the two chase and escape. Tuanzang's heart was faintly uneasy, and he always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't say what was wrong, so he could only retreat sadly, waiting for the next opportunity. However, with such a powerful ability to stop water, coupled with its defense, I don't know when the next opportunity will have to wait. It's time to stop. Fei Duan turned his head to the water stop that followed him. He had already lifted the 8-door Duanjia state, showing his sincerity, and even looked directly into the eyes of the water stopper. Fei Duan's heart is assured, he can convince Shisui, just because Shisui is a heroic figure who is willing to sacrifice himself for Konoha, and with this, Fei Duan has full certainty. Shisui stopped and looked at the silver-haired boy in front of him. His heart was full of doubts at the moment, and he needed to get an answer from Fei Duan's mouth. You inform Uchiha Itachi first, we will talk after he comes, so as not to distrust you. Fei Duan stood in place, not in a hurry at all, waiting for the water stop to notify Uchiha Itachi. No thanks, I'm already here. In the woods not far away, Uchiha Weasel walked out directly, looking at Faden with hostility, and on his shoulder rested a crow with bright eyes. In an instant, Fei Duan understood that the water stop had already notified the weasel through this crow, and the weasel who got the news also rushed over in an instant. He was indeed a member of a group with me. The weasel first affirmed that although he wore a mask, it was impossible to admit mistakes in the eyes of the weasel. You can explain. The water stop opened again. Presumably, the water stop just used the famous kaleidoscope chakra eye. Fei Duan did not answer his words, but asked rhetorically. Shisui frowned, but nodded anyway. That's the problem. Poor stop water. Fei Duan teased in an exaggerated tone, and continued, if my message is not wrong, presumably the pupil technique in Shueishue's eyes is not heavenly god. As soon as Fei Duan's words came out, the eyes of the water and weasel changed greatly, staring at Fei Duan with murderous intent, obviously a word of discord and about to start. Don't be nervous. The matter of your eyes has already been exposed in the upper echelons of Konoha, otherwise why do you think Danzo wants to do something to you? Fei Duan asked rhetorically, not feeling the slightest nervousness because of the killing intent of the two. He understood that it was impossible to stop the water, and the ferret was even more impossible. Shisui was silent. Don't be a god, the strongest illusion, but in the eyes of those who don't trust him, it is destined to be the trigger for war, no matter how hard he tries, but Konoha's high-ranking people have long been suspicious of him. I have to say how desperate such a situation is, for stopping the water. I will use the other gods to change the patriarch's mind, and they will not make a move with Konoha, and then there will be no war. Stopping water is like self-hypnosis, but is it really that simple? The ferret on the side was just silent and unable to speak. Don't you think it's too simplistic for you? Stop the water? Ask yourself, how many Uchiha members want to rebel against Konoha and overthrow Konoha? How many other gods can you change their minds? You are simply helpless delay. Sooner or later the war will still break out, and at that time, the contradiction will become more and more intense. Do you understand? Fei Duan shouted hoarsely, as if he was grieving for this inevitable tragedy. Shueishui was silent, and Fei Duan's words were like steel knives inserted into his heart, shattering the last trace of his illusion. So, your final choice is everyone's Konoha, or your Uchiha? I need your answers, and I can give you the final answer. Hidan deliberately separated Uchiha and Konoha, wanting to draw results from their mouths. The eyes of the water and the ferret are full of painful choices. No matter which side, it is difficult for them to give up, and the conflict between family and faith is always sad. So, are you representing the 3 generations of Hokage? Suddenly, the water stopped like a flying section asked, as if this was quite important. Although I don't represent the 3rd generation of Hokage, I am very familiar with the 3 generations of old men. Fei Duan did not answer affirmatively, but just told the truth. So, if you find us, you must have a solution. Say what you think. How exactly should this be solved between Uchiha and Konoha? Shueishui asked the question he wanted to know the most, and looked at the flying segment with anticipation, hoping to get a perfect answer. In this regard, Fei Duan just smiled and said, let's talk about your choice first, this is very important. Fei Duan once again emphasized that Shisui looked at Itachi, a trace of pain flashed in his eyes, but he replied firmly, Konoha. Sure enough, these 2 tragic characters always choose to carry all their pain and sins with themselves, and look up to the light in the darkness. Despite being touched, Fei Duan calmed down and said in an almost cruel voice, the only way, the Uchiha clan can only leave 2 flames of hope. Shueishui and Itachi's face are bitter. This ending, as early as when they chose Konoha, had already been expected. The ambitious Uchiha family has made Konoha's tolerance to the limit, and the choices they made are also doomed to the end of the Uchiha family. Why two? Which two people are again? Shuei asked in a hoarse voice, his throat almost dry and unable to make a sound. Fei Duan glanced at Uchiha Itachi and replied, Itachi and his younger brother can only be the two of them. Episode 22, Why? Before Shuei could speak, the ferret became excited and questioned Fei Duan. He is not afraid of death, and even if he could, he would have long wanted to seek death, and the way of living in a mixture of race and faith is heavy and painful. Weasel. Calm down, he is right, it can only be the two of you. Shuei quickly figured out the crux of the matter. The reason is simple, Itachi, you have a heart for Konoha, and Sasuke is the youngest of Uchiha, and he is not affected by the hatred of the Uchiha clan. Fei Duan explained. So, what about stopping the water? Stop him, Weasel said excitedly. Weasel. You understand, don't you? Shuei interrupted Weasel's words, and said with a flat face. Fei Duan also said a little uncomfortable, that's right, stopping the water is inevitable, and his death must be made public, and only in this way can they feel at ease. This is the tragedy of possessing other gods, the tragedy that is destined. Itachi was silent, but Shuei was smiling. From the beginning of Tuanzo's conspiracy, he had already guessed his end, but now he was told by Jingda Guangming. Tell me about your whole plan. The face of the water stop is calm like the sea, and the waves are calm. Itachi also regained his composure and listened carefully. He understood that once the decision was made, no one could change it, and they really had a lot in common. The plan is very simple. Tuanzo has already looked at the Uchiha clan, and he is also full of doubts about Itachi, and sooner or later he will give an order to let Itachi personally slaughter the Uchiha clan. Now the escape of the water will inevitably intensify Danzo's suspicions. He is bound to force Itachi to attack his own family. All we need to do is push the boat along the water. Itachi negotiates with him, and he will definitely be able to save Sasuke. After that, things are simple. You don't need Itachi to do such cruel things. You only need you to help me get the blood of all Uchiha members, and I can do the rest, but this reputation, you have to bear it yourself. Fei Duan told the entire Uchiha destruction plan in advance, turned it into his plan, and took the benefits he most desired for him, and personally slaughtered the rights of the Uchiha clan. Why do you have to let the weasel bear this name? Shuei couldn't help but ask that he could endure everything in silence, but his friends would also be treated like this, and he couldn't bear it. For the trust of the village. Also for Sasuke's safety. Only by making people think that Itachi destroyed the Uchiha clan can Konoha's high level rest assured, and Itachi can only leave Konoha as a defector ninja, only then can they be at ease, and for the reputation of the Uchiha clan. Itachi's killing and defection mean that Uchiha did not rebel, it was only Uchiha who rebelled, and he also viciously destroyed his own ethnic group, and the Uchiha family is innocent and unfortunate. So, do you understand? Fei Duan gave his own explanation, looked at the two, and then it was their moment to decide. It was very simple to say, but it took great courage and a strong heart to give action. Itachi. He was very conflicted, knowing that what Fei Duan said was reasonable, but he still didn't want to see his best friend treated like this. I promised. Itachi uncharacteristically agreed, perhaps in his heart, as long as Sasuke could be safe, it didn't matter if he carried more hatred and insults. Last question, what do you need their blood for? Itachi asked. Kill them, resurrect them. Fei Duan simply said that he had already made perfect preparations. Maybe Uchiha would be restored to his hands, but it might also be reborn in his hands. Short-lived death is not eternal, and the dead may return to the homes of the living or even come back to life again. Fei Duan looked at the two who were puzzled, and did not specifically say what he thought, but only metaphorically said what he meant. The dead, can they really be resurrected? Shuei asked, and the weasel was also full of doubt. If the dead Uchiha family could still be reborn, then their hearts would not be so painful and heavy. Soon, Weasel, you will see an incomplete resurrection. Fei Duan said that according to the plot, it won't be long before the big snake pill attacks Konoha. I hope what you say is true. Shuei and Weasel glanced at Fei Duan calmly. Then, Shuei looked up at the cloudless blue sky, breathing the refreshing air in the forest. All this is so attached and reluctant, but he is going to say goodbye to all this today. Fei Duan just looked at him calmly, and did not rush to make a move. Such a character should be given enough respect to him. My eyes, Weasel, you take one, the other, just give it to you, I hope you don't betray my trust. Shuei actually gouged out his eyes alive and handed them to the two respectively. And Fei Duan and Weasel were deeply shocked by the stop water, and Weasel's eyes were full of tears. Now he is just a teenager in his tens. Fei Duan and Weasel trembled and took it. The feeling of blood and warmth in his hand was the ultimate relic of the water stop to this world, but he could not wait for the day when he saw the light with it. Let's do it, Fei Duan. Shuei shouted the name of Fei Duan for the first time, but it was a cruel and sad request to let him kill himself. Poof. The black spear penetrated the chest of the water stopper, carried warm blood, sprinkled the surrounding greenery, lay on the ground with a smile, and stepped into the world of faith in his dreams. Fei Duan carefully collected some water-stopping blood as a material to revive him when the time came, and put it in a bottle, and one day, the boy will appear in this world again, although this world is not very good. Get ready, Tuanzong is estimated to be ready to let you do it, this is for you, help me keep it. Fei Duan handed the other eye of the water stop to the weasel. He was too troublesome to save it himself, but it was very simple for the weasel. He did not believe that the weasel would covet this eye. This was the last words of the water stop. In the end, instead of bringing it back to Konoha, they cremated Shisui's body instead of bringing it back to Konoha, and as for the eyes, they lied that Shisui himself eventually destroyed, just as they did to stop the water in the first place. The Uchiha weasel on the side was silent, and his eyes were already blood red, and the Goyu in the middle was connected together, turning into a triangular windmill suit, stopping the death of the water, and opening his kaleidoscope. Episode 23. In the gloomy cabin, Fei Duan wore a Tengu mask. Without saying a word, under the face covered by the dwelling on the back, a pair of scarlet eyes were looking into the distance, and the three Goyu inside were slowly rotating. It is worthy of being known as the strongest existence of the blood succession limit. Just the three-hook jade has such an ability. Just the three-hook jade riding wheel eye has the ability to not only see the chakra vein, can see through all the subtle movements and imprints of the opponent, and hypnotic eye, release illusion to control the opponent, but also can copy and see through the three techniques of ninja, body, and illusion that are not the blood succession limit. At the moment when Fei Duan killed the water stop, he obtained the riding wheel eye through the killing system, and directly evolved into the riding wheel eye of Sanga Jade. In addition, he also got 5,000 killing points, opening the kaleidoscope of water stopping, and its combat power is completely equal to that of a shadow-level master. And when the flying segment first deprived the blood succession limit, his panel also changed. Host, fly segment fly. Strength, quasi-shadow level, not counting special abilities. Blood limit, Sharingan, 5,000 kill points required to upgrade. Physique, fire. Ninjutsu, spell death division, heart-turning technique, 8 doors dunjia, instantaneous technique fire escape how fireball technique, fire escape how dragon fire technique. Special, immortal body, perception. Weapons, bloody march scythe, black spear. Kill point, 5105. The blood succession limit decisively became a chakra eye, and there was an extra physique, and the most common fire attribute of the Uchiha clan could finally use ninjutsu against the enemy. It takes 5,000 kill points to upgrade to a kaleidoscope? This is a shadow-level existence in exchange for a killing point. Fei Duan is a little uncomfortable. As far as the combat power of the shadow level is concerned, there are so many shadow-level combat powerhouses, and almost none of them have appeared. Where can he find so many shadow-level powerhouses to kill to further upgrade the Sharingan? You know, the side effects of kaleidoscope riding wheel eyes are great. If you do not upgrade to an eternal kaleidoscope, then once you use the ability of the kaleidoscope, you will eventually go to the end of blindness. That was not what Fei Duan wanted to see. He only hoped now that the killing points brought by the people of the Uchiha clan could allow him to upgrade to an eternal kaleidoscope, otherwise, he might have to launch a surprise attack on some characters who had not yet appeared. Upgrade. Fei Duan gritted his teeth and chose to upgrade, and the 5,000 killing points disappeared in an instant, and in his mind, there was a prompt sound from the system. Ask the host to select the kaleidoscope ability, and choose 2 of the known abilities as the ability of both eyes. Then, the flying segment saw a whole list of kaleidoscopic abilities: Tsukiyo, Amaterasu, Kagutsukamai, Kamui, divided into 2 types, long-distance release, and close-range and self-release, Bitenjin, once every 10 years. Huh? That's it? What about Madara's? What about Azuna's? Have you eaten them? Fei Duan questioned the system in annoyance. They don't know what they are capable of, they can't choose. The system's icy voice explained. So, can I choose the form of Susanoo? Fei Duan asked again. He was very concerned about this. No, the 4 types of Susanoo as we know it so far were all born out of a specific combination. Flying segment. The best choice in Susanoo is naturally Itachi Susa, holding a 10-fist sword in his right hand, a spirit sword without a physical body, which belongs to a kind of Kusanagi sword, which can suck the object of the thorn into the wine gourd and seal it in the dream. The length of the sword can be freely stretched, and the speed is extremely fast. Left hand 8 mirrors, a non-physical spirit shield that can change its attributes according to the attributes of the attack received, rebounding ninjutsu and physical attacks. It is also able to use Yasaka no Goyu, a super long-range attack method, throwing Goyu to hit the target, and has the destruction effect of fire attributes. This is the most desired choice of the flying segment, but the system limits the choice of the flying segment, and can only be determined by a fixed skill combination. Even Fei Duan was wondering if there would be no Susa if the 2 skills did not match. If there really was none, it would be very fucked. If I choose 2 abilities, will I be able to obtain other abilities in the future? Fei Duan asked the most concerned question. Those kaleidoscopic abilities are all terrifying existences, and he doesn't want to let one go. When you level up to become an eternal kaleidoscope, you can get the other 2 abilities, and the last one can be purchased for 50,000 kill points. The system explained coldly. What a black businessman. Absolute black businessman. One ability sells for 50,000. Why don't you grab it? Fei Duan was speechless. I choose Shuangshan Wei. In the end, Fei Duan still made a decision and chose the 2 abilities he was most excited about at the moment, the divine power of controlling space. Kamui can also use Susanoo and has the spatial ability to shoot Kamui shuriken, and the part touched by it will be transferred to another world by the spatial power carried above, just as the chakra arm of the 10 tails was cut off by Kakashi. System, the space generated by my divine power will not be the same as Obito. Suddenly, Fei Duan thought of an extremely frightening question. If this crashed, it would be extremely embarrassing. No, the spaceborn of the host is not transmitted through the host's divine power, and outsiders cannot break through. Phew. It's okay, it's okay. Fei Duan let out a long breath and said happily. Next, Fei Duan began an interesting experiment, constantly shuttling between his private space and real space. Soon, Fei Duan completely mastered Shinwei and skillfully used it. And this is also the reason why the flying segment chose Shinwei, this powerful kaleidoscope ability. There is almost no burden on the eyes. Even in the case of 3-hook jade, there is no need to worry about the problem that the eyes will be blind. Even the long-distance transmission of the Shinwei of the left eye will only consume a large amount of chakra. That is to say, as long as Hidan does not use Susanoo with his life, then he does not have to worry about the problem of his eyes at all, and with the particularity of Shinwei, his attacks will be more weird, and it will be much easier to hurt the enemy to take blood. While playing, the flying segment launched its divine power. The space was distorted like a whirlpool, and the figure of the flying segment gradually distorted and disappeared into the room. Episode 24. Different from a ruined space with soil, the space generated by Fei Duan's divine power is an endless sea of blood, scattered with scattered isolated islands, and in the center is a towering tower, and Fei Duan is standing on the top of the tower at this time, looking down on this space of his own. It's really just a simple and special space, and there is no life. Fei Duan couldn't help but sigh. As the owner of the space, he had a clear view of the situation here. But it's a good place to keep your belongings, which is equivalent to carrying a space ring with you. Fei Duan took out a bottle of blood from the water stop and put it inside the tower. As long as Fei Duan does not take the initiative to put people in, this is an absolutely safe place, and even he now regrets a little that he gave the water-stopping eye to the weasel for safekeeping, and it is much more convenient to put it in his own hands now. A spatial vortex appeared again at the right eye of the flying segment, transferring the flying segment to real space, and the scarlet in the eyes gradually dissipated, turning into the original dark pupils. Just then, not long after Fei Duan appeared in the real world, the figure of the weasel appeared outside the house. Fei Duan opened the door and walked out, guessing that weasel must have brought a news that he had been waiting for a long time. Tuanzo couldn't wait. The death of the water stop and the disappearance of his eyes made Tuanzo's mood for the Uchiha clan more and more urgent, and just this morning, he summoned me forward, issued an order to me to exterminate Uchiha, and he asked me to kill you. As soon as the flying segment appeared, the ferret explained the situation. He actually directly bypassed the 3 generations of Hokage and directly gave you an order now. It seems that the sudden death of Shisui has made his suspicion of the Uchiha clan reach a limit, and it is expected that you will do it. However, he didn't even forget to let you deal with me. It seems that he also has doubts about me. Fei Duan pondered. Tuanzong didn't get the eyes to stop the water. His plan was a mess. It seemed that he was eager to slaughter Uchiha and obtain the Sharingan, and start his research with Orochimaru. Fei Duan knew that Tuanzong had been secretly associated with the Great Snake Pill, and many of the human research materials of the Great Snake Pill were provided by Tuanzong for him. Did you ask him to protect Sasuke from staying in the village? Fei Duan asked. Raised, he agreed. After all, Sasuke is just a child, and his hatred will be remembered on my head in the future. Itachi explained. Then, you only need to bring the blood of your people to me. Such a cruel thing does not need to be done by you, and it can only be done by me, and it is possible to bring it back to life in the future. Fei Duan said half-truthfully. Then, take care of my brother, and tonight, I will bring you the blood of my clan. Itachi said coldly, without asking why. Since he had chosen to believe, he would not hesitate. Don't worry, Sasuke, I will naturally help you take care of it, but I will not interfere with his thoughts either. Hidan knew Sasuke's future experiences, and he didn't plan to meddle in the grudge between the 2 brothers. I just ask you to promise me to protect him from harm from Konoha, that's enough. Itachi had already made a decision in his heart, and had already arranged a path for Sasuke, but he didn't know that Sasuke would not want to embark on such a path at all. If I do what I say, you can rest assured that the 3 generations of old men will also help you take care of Sasuke. Once again, the flight segment answered in the affirmative. That's good. After that, the ferret planned to leave. Wait a minute. Suddenly, Fei Duan stopped the ferret. The ferret looked at Fei Duan suspiciously. What else is going on? Give me that stopped water and I will use it to control Danzo in case he does something again. Fei Duan explained. Psychic. Without the slightest hesitation, the weasel directly channeled a crow with the left eye of the riding wheel, and it flew straight to the shoulder of the flying section and landed, quietly combing its dark feathers with its beak. Oh. Also, I don't know how to use it. Fei Duan was a little embarrassed. He really didn't know how the weasel controlled other heavenly gods. You must know that he didn't put the water-stopping eyes into his eye sockets. You just need to let Danzo look at him. You don't have to worry about the rest. Don't Tenjin can only use it once in 10 years, and then this crow will be given to you. You can deal with it yourself. Itachi said coldly. Flying segment. Damn, doesn't that mean that if you need it in 10 years, you have to be notified? Isn't it a bit excessive? The ferret didn't stop much longer, turning into a pitch-black crow and disappearing outside the house, leaving only the echo of the crow's chirping and a few pitch-black crow feathers. Sure enough, it's this pretending way to leave. Fei Duan looked at the disappeared weasel enviously, although Shenwei was also very pretentious, but he couldn't use it blatantly now. After leaving, Fei Duan was looking forward to it excitedly, wondering what kind of surprise the entire Uchiha clan would bring him, and whether he could upgrade the kaleidoscope to an eternal kaleidoscope. Fei Duan is already a little impatient. If he really reaches the realm of eternal kaleidoscope, then he can almost walk sideways in this world, and there are not too many worries. There was a big incident in the Uchiha clan. The genius son of the patriarch, who actually bleed when he saw people, and specially took a glass bottle to receive a large bottle, looking at the big bag behind him, obviously many people have been poisoned by him. Finally, after collecting the blood of his clan, Itachi came to Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Mikoto, his parents, while Sasuke was still studying in the village and had not yet returned. Weasel, what the hell are you doing? Uchiha Fugaku asked with some annoyance. He was a little confused about this son who had always been very at ease, but he couldn't understand it today. I'm sorry. The ferret responded to his father in a low voice, tears of sadness streaming from his deep eyes. Uchiha Fugaku and Mikoto's hearts suddenly jumped. They felt something, but they didn't say it. Mikoto stepped forward and hugged Itachi gently, while Uchiha Fugaku said softly, "No matter what, you are my excellent son, and since you have made your choice, then we will support you, Itachi." Episode 25. It is night. The sound of insects is accompanied by the night breeze into people's ears. A bright moon hangs high, and the Uchiha tribe in the night looks so wonderful. In the doubtful eyes of his parents, the ferret took a tube of their blood, leaving a tear of sadness, and turned away. Well, yikes. The crow's chirping sounded outside the flying section's house, and with the fluttering of its wings, the weasel's figure once again appeared outside the flying section's house. I'm coming. The weasel's deep voice sounded, with an indescribable sadness in it. Who can watch their people die without doing anything? Fei Duan came out wearing a loose robe, and the bloody march scythe was placed in the kamui space by him, holding a black spear in his hand, and he was about to start an attempt to curse multiple people. The ferret carefully placed a large bag on the ground behind his back, and when the bag was opened, it revealed many small bottles inside, each with a label attached to it, representing the source and identity of the blood inside. Fei Duan's eyes became hot, and these blood meant a large number of killing points, as well as other attribute physiques that might appear. So, I'm going to start. Do you have any questions? Fei Duan asked. I need to watch from the sidelines. The ferret replied coldly. No problem. Phaeton did not refuse. He did not care about Itachi's request, and Itachi could not see through the mystery of Phaeton's immortal body, which was already clear in the original work, not to mention that the current Itachi has not yet reached the level of strength at that time. Fei Duan took out a wooden cup from the house, and then began to drip the blood in each glass tube into the wooden cup, and soon, the wooden cup was filled with blood, and the blood of the entire group also entered the wooden cup. The rest of the blood was carefully placed in the house by Fei Duan. These can be used as the basis for forbidden art and soil rebirth. Fei Duan had the idea of using soil rebirth to resurrect the entire Uchiha clan at the beginning, and let such a powerful race fight for him. What a crazy thing. Even after tonight, before all the Uchiha people die, it is very likely that they will witness their loved ones die by their side, so it is very likely that they will open the kaleidoscope chakra eye before death. And once the flying segment resurrects them, the immortal body plus the kaleidoscope chakra eye plus unlimited chakra will become the most terrifying legion. Fei Duan took the ferret to a place far away from the house. He didn't want the smell of blood to stay in the house. Under the astonished eyes of the weasel, Fei Duan swallowed the still warm blood into his stomach with 2 mouthfuls, and then the whole person instantly changed into a terrifying black and white god of death. With crazy bloodthirsty eyes, Fei Duan fiercely raised the black spear and inserted it into his left leg. Poof. The blood instantly stained the green ground, the weasel's eyes gradually became solemn, and his chakra eyes had already turned into a triangular windmill suit, but he found that he couldn't see through the body of the flying segment at all, and even the flow of chakra in his body could not be observed. Spell, death by blood. The scarlet formation took shape under the feet of the flying segment, and at this moment, the life and death of the Uchiha clan were all in the hands of the flying segment, and he also proved that as long as there is blood, regardless of the number of people, it is possible to launch the death division with blood. Fei Duan moved again, he held the spear in his left hand, raised it high, and then plunged it into his right leg. At this time the death division had already launched with blood, which means the people of the Uchiha clan will suffer the pain and injuries that will be treated as opposed to it. Ah. Bastard, damn it. It hurts. The entire Uchiha clan, except for Sasuke, who had not yet returned, let out a harsh scream and a muffled snort of enduring pain. Only Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Makoto looked at each other and understood the meaning in each other's eyes. They looked into the distance with longing eyes, as if the figures of their two sons appeared there, and they understood that death was coming. Under the dark night sky, the land of the Uchiha clan was like death descending here, and the entire group was in a cry of sorrow. Death was so close to them. The Uchiha clan moved so much, but no one seemed to notice that the entire Konoha fell into a death-like calm. Oh, what are you going to do, ferrets? Fei Duan endured the sharp pain that kept coming from his legs, and asked undecidedly whether it was pleasure or pain. Why torture them? If you can't give an explanation, I'm afraid only one of us will be able to walk out today. The weasel looked at Fei Duan with cold eyes, and a short knife was already on Fei Duan's neck. Fei Duan glanced at the weasel, and sure enough, the weasel must have a surveillance crow in the Uchiha clan, and the changes in Uchiha could be detected from such a distance. I'm doing this for their good. Pain can make them sober, and soberly facing the death of others can stimulate their strength, and open the kaleidoscope chakra eye before death. Do you understand? Fei Duan roared madly. They are all about to die, what is the use of opening the kaleidoscope? The hand holding the knife did not loosen, and it was still firmly on the neck of the flying segment, and if it was slightly wrong, it would be cut off. Huh. Ha 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 ha. Fei Duan laughed madly, and tears almost burst out of his eyes. Itachi. Have you forgotten what I said about the resurrection? My resurrection of them naturally requires them to pay accordingly. Useless people have no meaning in existing. Fei Duan looked at Itachi with a mocking gaze, amused by his stupidity. He couldn't help Itachi resurrect the clan and send them away. The weasel's eyes were also full of killing intent. The kaleidoscope rotated wildly in its eyes, and a tall red chakra skeleton quickly formed outside its body. The tall red skeleton, according to the will of the weasel, looked at the flying segment coldly, and the huge bone fist with burning flames was ready to blast down at any time and smash the flying segment into minced meat. Fei Duan did not make any movement, but looked at the weasel indifferently, and his black and white face was particularly terrifying. With the flying stage of Shinwei, he is invincible innately, and the ability to transform his body in two spaces at any time, and the ferret has no way to take him. It's just that he doesn't believe that the weasel will be able to get his hands on it, and he firmly believes that even if he pays a certain price, the weasel will let him resurrect his clan at that time. Episode 26. A cold wind hit, and the dead leaves on the trees were swept by the wind, danced with the wind, fell on a huge red skeleton, and then burned to ashes. Itachi's heart once again fell into the decision, whether to kill the flying segment or stick to the original choice. Kill Fei Duan. According to the situation just now, his clan will still die 9 times out of 10, and let Fei Duan torture his clan like this, he can't bear it. For a moment, he was caught in a dilemma. Hey! I said, I'm just going to sober them up, and then I won't torture them. Fei Duan was the first to break the silence, and he wanted to let the ferret make a decision as soon as possible. Sasuke is coming home. The flight segment was once again stimulated. Sasuke. As soon as he heard these 2 words, Itachi's heart was instantly shaken. As a younger brother, Sasuke was his life. The red Susa instantly dispersed, and the hand holding the saber also withdrew, and said lightly, I hope you can keep your promise and resurrect my people when the time comes. Then, he turned into a flock of crows and disappeared into the icy night sky. Hey, hey. Of course I will resurrect them, and that is my unstoppable bloody legion in the future. Fei Duan laughed lowly. Poof. The black spear penetrated the heart of the flying segment, and since the purpose of stimulating the Uchiha clan had been achieved, then they could also die. Pulling out the black spear, the black and white colors on the body gradually disappeared, and the wound was slowly healing. Fei Duan walked back to his cabin, intending to start counting the loot this time. In front of the Uchiha clan gate, Sasuke rushed in excitedly with his shoulder bag. He was already a little eager to go home. He remembered his brother telling him to go back today to teach him more skilled shuriken. On the streets of the Uchiha clan, Sasuke ran forward quickly. He always felt that Uchiha tonight was a little quiet, strangely quiet, just like a corpse lying in a coffin. Sasuke's heart began to thump and accelerate, frantically shouting daddy, mom and brother on the street, but the night was still so silent that there was not even the slightest echo. Sasuke's feet once again quickened his pace, and even used the teleportation technique, and a voice kept coming from his heart telling him, dead, all dead. Boom. Sasuke pushed them to the side, but what came into view was the inescapable sad scene. His father and mother silently fell on the cold floor, obviously dead for a long time. And his brother Uchiha Itachi stood coldly on the side, looking at the intruding Uchiha Sasuke, as if looking at a weak ant. Brother. What happened? Dad, Mom, they, said Sasuke intermittently, tears streaming down his eyes unstoppably, and he slumped to the ground, sobbing silently. How can an ignorant teenager accept a sudden scene? What happened? Itachi seemed to hear a funny question. My stupid brother, you really don't have the value of being killed, you really make me uninterested, then, let you see the cruel reality. Monthly reading. With Itachi's icy voice, Sasuke looked at Itachi's scarlet kaleidoscope Sharingan, and his eyes lost their radiance. His spirit has been torn into the illusion, and in the cruel illusion, the solitary figure of the ferret continues to shuttle through the entire group, constantly bringing a trace of blood, taking away a living life, until finally, he used the sharp short knife to pierce his parents' chest. His parents looked at Itachi with puzzled eyes, and then gradually lay in a pool of blood, leaving Itachi standing cold beside them, quietly waiting for Sasuke's return. Ah. Yes, this can't be, it's not true. Brother. How could you? How could it be? Sasuke's voice became smaller and smaller, and he was clearly shocked by Itachi's madness. He couldn't understand how his brother, who had always been friendly, could become like this. My stupid brother, don't you see clearly enough? Then let me perform that perfect slaughter for you. Nope. No. I don't want. Monthly reading. Sasuke trembled and fell into a terrifying illusion again. His face became hideous, the bruises on his fists burst out, and the whole person was tightened into a ball, bearing the boundless illusion brought to him by Itachi. Itachi's face was already wet with tears at some point, but Sasuke, who was caught in the illusion, could not see, nor could he feel the boundless pain in Itachi's heart, torturing his most cherished brother with his own hands. What could be more cruel? After being tortured by illusions again and again, Sasuke lay limply on the ground, staring blankly at his brother in front of him, the devil-like brother. Don't you want to know why? Itachi looked at Sasuke on the floor with a cold expression. Looking at these eyes that bring you fear, it is for it that I slaughtered the entire race. This is the source of power, and you don't even have the value of being killed. My stupid brother, if you want to kill me. Hate it. Hate it. And then live ugly. Run away, run away. Then let's live in secret. Only after you have acquired the same eyes as me can you have the qualifications for revenge, so that you can raise my interest in you. Hatred, so that you can live ugly. Itachi's figure disappeared into the house, the scarlet moonlight outside the window poured into the house from the window, and Sasuke's godless eyes gradually became fierce, hateful, and crazy. Fei Duan and Weasel walked in the silent forest, and they were silent for a while. There was a mysterious guy who used to look for me before I took my blood. This time, it was the ferret who spoke first. Oh? Fei Duan was suspicious. He said that he could help me destroy the Uchiha clan and invited me to join an organization called Shao. You promised? That's right, such an organization that suddenly appeared and had bad intentions. I need to join in and monitor their movements. Well, I wish you well, Sasuke's affairs. I will inform the 3 generations of old men, don't worry. Fei Duan waved his hand at the ferret, which was regarded as a parting gesture. Then, Sasuke, please. The ferret gradually walked into the darkness and disappeared into the gloomy woods, leaving Fei Duan alone standing in place, meditating. Episode 27. After sending off the Farachi, Fei Duan returned to the hut and used Kamui to transfer himself to the Tower of the Blood Sea Space. Query Host Panel. Host, Fly Segment, Segment Fly. Strength, Shadow Level, not counting special abilities. Blood Limit, Kaleidoscope Sharingan, 50,000 kill points required to upgrade. Physique, Fire, Thunder. Ninjutsu, Spell Death Division by Blood, Heart-Turning Technique, 8 Doors Dunjia, Instantaneous Body Art Fire Escape How Fireball Technique, Fire Escape How Dragon Fire Technique, Fire Escape. Special, Immortal Body, Perception. Weapons, Bloody March Scythe, Black Spear. Kill point, 55124. The destruction of the entire Uchiha clan has brought considerable killing points to the flying segment, which is enough to upgrade its kaleidoscope Blood Will Eye, and the flying segment has also thoroughly figured out how killing points are evaluated. Ordinary people, 1. Shinobi, 50. Naka Shinobu, 300. Kami Shinobu, 800. Elite Shinobi, 1500. Quasi-Shadow level, 3000. Shadow level, 5000. Although the number of Uchiha clans is not very large, its quality is indeed rare. There are no less than 10 elite level upper endurances, while the rest of the adults are almost all at the level of upper endurance, and among them there are several shadow level powerhouses who have opened the kaleidoscope riding wheel eye. However, they could only become the sacrifices of the flying segment tonight, allowing the flying segment to obtain enough killing points to promote the eternal kaleidoscope. Upgrade, Eternal Kaleidoscope. Fei Duan trembled his hands and said excitedly. As his words fell, the kaleidoscope in his eyes gradually transformed into a completely different shape, and the aura exuding from his body far exceeded that of a shadow-level powerhouse, and he became the second person with an eternal kaleidoscope, Jiba Sharingan. Please select a kaleidoscope capability. The system's icy voice prompted. Tsukio, Amaterasu. Hidan decisively chose the two abilities that Itachi possessed, which were the kaleidoscope of positive two abilities, of which the most bizarre Susanoo was the one who boarded, and Susa who seemed to be the strongest in Hido. After a brief loss of concentration, Fei Duan mastered the ability of Amaterasu and moon reading, and faintly felt the existence of another Susanoo, and now, there are two kinds of Susa beings residing in his body, which is unprecedented. Ha ha ha. Feeling the surging power in his body, the feeling of being able to control everything, made Fei Duan mesmerized. The chakra in his body is now almost comparable to the tailed beast, although it is not infinite, but it is already very terrifying. Fei Duan jumped into the sea of blood, stood on the scarlet sea, and shouted, Susanoo. The fiery red chakra giant instantly condensed and formed, not the original skeleton image, but the Optimus giant with a Tengu mask and wings, and the terrifying giant fell into the sea, setting off huge waves, and the sea water crashed on the isolated island to hunt. Rumble Susanoo stood with his feet tens of meters deep in the sea, and the burning flames constantly evaporated the scarlet seawater, and the red smoke rose into the air. Flying in front of Susanoo's forehead, feeling the majestic power generated by this giant and the unparalleled destructiveness, at this moment, he was intoxicated by this power that he had never experienced before. Ten-Fist Sword. With the command of Fei Duan's thoughts, the red longsword held by Susanoo in his right hand instantly soared, shooting towards an island like an aurora. Rumble. A huge noise swept the sea, and the Ten-Fist Sword pierced the island deeply with a fiery flame, and with the retraction of the Ten-Fist Sword, the huge crater in the island that was pierced by the Ten-Fist Sword flowed with scorching magma and emitted a sulfur-like smell. Ha ha ha. Looking at the terrifying power of the complete body Susanoo, Fei Duan laughed loudly. This is only the attack ability of the Ten-Fist Sword, and once it is stabbed, it will be sealed into the gourd and fall into an eternal sleep. Yasaka no Goitama. 3 red blazing shurikens like the eyes of the three-hooked jade chakra flew out from Susa's hand, and after hitting the 3 islands, a huge explosion occurred, and the raging flames enveloped the entire island, and the terrifying blazing flames gradually melted the island into a pile of flowing magma, falling into the sea and making a sizzling sound. What a wonderful feeling. Fei Duan sighed. This rough way of fighting was really very comforting. Although it was only an experiment, he also felt the power and charm of Susanoo. The red Susa gradually dissipated, flew above the sea, looked at the scarlet water, and thought about the next plan of action. He will not stop because of the strength in front of him. His thirst for power is unstoppable. Now he just has the capital to stand proudly on the top of the world, and if he wants to look down on this world, the flying section needs more power. Kamui. The rotation speed of the space vortex was significantly more than doubled, and in the blink of an eye, the flying segment disappeared into the space of the Sea of Blood. Inside the Hokage office, Sarutobi looked at the scroll in his hand, which was in a state of anxiety at the moment, and the Uchiha clan was actually destroyed. And it was still the hand of their clan Uchiha Itachi, and Ape Flying Sun Chopper really didn't know how to describe how he felt at the moment. It wasn't that he didn't know what Tuanzong was thinking, but he didn't expect that Tuanzong would move so quickly, and he also hid all the information from himself. A wave of anger continued to rise in the hearts of the 3 generations, and he had to ask Danzo for an explanation, otherwise he would not be able to do it in this 3rd generation. And just as the Ape Flying Sun Chop was about to leave, a strange vortex suddenly appeared in the void in front of him, and with the continuous rotation of the vortex, a human figure appeared in front of the Ape Flying Sun Chop. Hey! Fei Duan awkwardly looked at the Ape Flying Sun / holding a golden hoop rod in front of him, with a defensive face, and said hello awkwardly. Phew. How is it that you guy scared my old man into smoke? Ape Fei let out a long breath and cursed in annoyance. Huh? Your eyes. As if he had eaten Huang Lian, Ape Flying Sun Chopper was so shocked that he couldn't speak, staring at Fei Duan's pair of divine kaleidoscope riding wheel eyes, as if he had seen the original Hokage Reborn. Fei Duan laughed proudly. He deliberately exposed the Sharingan to the eyes of the 3 generations, one is for the trust of the 3 generations, and the other is for the ability to use the Sharingan. Episode 28, Envy no? Fei Duan asked happily. Envy, you big-headed ghost. What the hell is going on? You give me a little seriousness. Sarutobi slapped the table, saw that something was wrong, and even linked it to Uchiha's extermination case. You're going to ask what's going on with my eyes? Or ask what happened to the Uchiha family? Fei Duan asked, deliberately puzzled. I have to know. The 3rd generation almost didn't smash the cigarette stick in his mouth on Fei Duan's head. This angry little ghost, all at this time is still with his own skin. Didn't he see that he was already burned? Okay, I said that's it. What are you angry about? Fei Duan saw that this old man was really going to be angry, and hurriedly said that for this person who really cared about himself, Fei Duan still knew how to be grateful. Well, I got a mysterious assassination mission. Fei Duan just told the matter to Ape Fei Ri / in the original way, and did not hide it for half a point. In this matter, he felt that there was no need to hide him, even if this cruel attention was brought up by him first. Alas. Sarutobi sighed heavily, as if the whole person was much older, and for him, who had been committed to peaceful coexistence between Uchiha and the village, the occurrence of this situation was a heavy blow to him. Old man, let's open a little. The ambition of the Uchiha clan has long been doomed to such an end, and the existence of Tuanzang will aggravate this situation, and this scene is inevitable. Fei Duan comforted the 3 generations softly, not wanting him to be too sad about it. After all, this matter was currently caused by him. Poor weasel. He's just a child, carrying such a heavy burden so early, and even more infamy. There was a trace of sympathy in the eyes of the 3 generations, and they felt sad about what happened to the weasel. For the sake of his younger brother, for the survival of the Uchiha clan, he had to carry all this, and I believe that he can withstand it perfectly and grow into a good Konoha ninja. Fei Duan persistently said loudly. For the flying segment who has watched the Hokage in its entirety, Itachi is admirable and trustworthy. Sarutobi glanced at Hidan in surprise, not understanding why he trusted and praised Itachi so much, and was even more curious about Hibi's thorough and curious view of the relationship between Uchiha and Konoha. You little ghost, you are not old, but your mind is meticulous. Especially the ruthlessness of the entire Uchiha clan, I admire the old man. Ape Fei didn't just praise, but also said sarcastically. Fei Duan laughed awkwardly. This is always unavoidable, but the little grade is ruthless, which is not a good thing. Alas. Forget it, since things have happened, there is no way to go back to the past, and only an existence like you can survive in this world. Sarutobi sighed, not blaming Fei Duan's murderous and vicious nature. Because of Tsunade, he was willing to believe this teenager and his own vision. I only hope that you can help Konoha at some moment, so that this village that has been forged with thousands of painstaking efforts will not be destroyed in one fell swoop. Ape Fei looked at Fei Duan seriously, preaching word by word. Fei Duan looked at the solemn Ape Fei, put away his smiling face, and there was a trace of seriousness on the young little face. As long as I am here, Konoha will definitely always exist, ha ha ha. Good. Ape Fei laughed loudly, and the trace of mustard in his heart also dissipated invisible. Fei Duan also smiled. This kind old man always carries an inexplicable infectious power, able to warm the hearts of others. So, are you going to tell me about your eye problem? Don't try to fool around. Ape Fei took the pipe and hit Fei Duan's head hard. Flying segment. This is still a bit of a way to take out your own anger. I don't know very well, there may be something strange about my own blood succession limit. I drank the blood of the Uchiha clan before using the spell Death Division's blood, and then inexplicably had such eyes. The flying segment naturally does not expose the existence of the system, giving a vague explanation. Ape Fei was shocked after hearing this. As a Hokage, he had seen a lot of strange blood succession limits, although Fei Duan had never seen this, but he did not have any doubts. He was just shocked by the strength of this blood succession limit. Your spatial ability is also given by these eyes? Sarutobi asked speculatively. He knew the Uchiha family, and he was very clear about the existence of the kaleidoscope, which was exactly the same as the situation in front of him. That's right, it's all the ability of these eyes. Fei Duan replied affirmatively. Hiss. Ape Fei gasped. There were many people in the Uchiha clan, but he had rarely seen anyone who opened the kaleidoscope riding wheel eye, and he could imagine the difficulty of opening the kaleidoscope. And Fei Duan was just a coincidence, so he directly obtained the power that the Uchiha clan craved, which made this Hokage-sama also have to be jealous of Fei Duan's good luck. This matter needs to be covered up, and your original ability to follow the blood limit realm cannot be directly exposed, otherwise, you are likely to become the public enemy of all the owners of the blood succession limit. Ape Fei said seriously. Fei Duan was a little curious, so he asked, how can this be covered up? Won't you use the ability to write chakra eyes from now on? In the village, doesn't Kakashi also have the Sharingan? This is different. Your situation is far worse than his, and the slightest exposure will lead to disaster. Ape Fei scolded loudly, dissatisfied with Fei Duan's unconcerned appearance. Okay, then how do you say to cover up? Fei Duan was really angry when he saw old man Ape Fei, and he couldn't help but weaken his momentum. Sarutobi rolled his eyes and replied, it's very simple, from now on, you will be a survivor of the Uchiha clan. Anyway, the people in the village before did not know about your situation, just say that you were sent by me to carry out a secret mission. Flying segment. You're really witty. The Uchiha clan, Sasuke is young and ignorant, Itachi rebels and is unlikely to betray Hida, the hope of the whole clan is still in the hands of Hibi, then it is really seamless. Ape Fei waved his hand and said, from today onwards, you will be Uchiha Faden. Fei Duan, it's really ugly. Episode 29. By the way, old man, Sasuke, you have to take care of him, this is the only request Itachi gave me. Fei Duan said with a serious expression, although he did not like a character like Sasuke, he could understand Sasuke's thoughts, and it was understandable that Sasuke became like that in the end. Living in a weaved world of hatred, the kind of pain and despair, people who have not felt it, cannot experience it at all. From now on tomorrow, bring Sasuke to the village, and I will arrange for people to take care of him personally. Sarutobi promised, and seemed to think of something again, your current identity is a survivor of the Uchiha clan, you should go and meet him more, when the time comes, when I announce your identity, they will not be suspicious of you. Fei Duan thought about it and agreed, so it was reasonable that he should still go to see Sasuke, after all, he had harmed their entire clan at present. Of course, the most important thing was that Fei Duan still had a more far-sighted plan for Sasuke. Then, I'll go first, I'll visit Sasuke later. Fei Duan disappeared into the spatial vortex in the envious eyes of Ape Fei. On a tall and steep cliff, a white-haired boy is sitting on the edge of the cliff, holding an orange-yellow book with an orange cover, enjoying it with relish. Huh? Kakashi, what are you looking at? Behind the boy, the figure of Hida suddenly appeared, looking at Kakashi with a mocking expression. Kakashi, they all hid in such a place to see the little yellow book, and they were all discovered. Kakashi's heart was broken. Young he is not so thick-skinned, even if he reads the little yellow book in front of others, he is not shocked, now he can obviously feel that his face under the mask has become red. You. How did you find me? Kakashi couldn't keep his usual calm, but instead asked in shame like a lion. Huh? I was just passing by here and happened to see you, so I just came up to say hello. Fei Duan replied as a matter of course, looking at Kakashi who had discovered his little secret in front of him, there was still a little surprise in his heart. Kakashi looked at Fei Duan suspiciously, with his vigilance, it was impossible that everyone had already stuck behind him to find out, could it be that he was too fascinated by what he had just seen? Don't look at me like that, everyone is a man, I understand. Especially a single dog like you, I can understand. Hidan glanced at the book in Kakashi's hand and gave him a look that all men understood. Kakashi. 3 black lines appeared on Kakashi's brain, damn if you can speak, we are appreciating art, why is it so ugly? What the hell are you going to do? Kakashi asked in annoyance. Take me to find Danzo, I have something to find him. Fei Duan said with a smile. Kakashi looked at the flying segment strangely, but he didn't have a gap between the flying segment and Danzo, so what good could he do when he went to find Danzo? 3 generations of old men asked me to come, but I can't find where this guy is, so I can only come to you, the elite of the dark department. Fei Duan shrugged and said helplessly. Let's go, follow me. Kakashi glanced at Hida suspiciously, but still chose to trust, he didn't think Hida would use the 3 generations as an excuse to deceive himself. However, Hida also took advantage of Kakashi's respect and trust in the 3 generations to find the matter of Danzo, and Hida did not discuss with the 3 generations at all. In the middle of the forest, Hida and Kakashi walked in the dark crypt, and the water droplets oozing from the underground hole fell to the ground, making a ticking sound. I said how these dark departments always build the base underground, can it be a little innovative? Fei Duan complained wordlessly. The original cult was like this, the dark part was like this, and the root of the group was still like this, so it couldn't be a little new? For example, built on a tree or something? Kakashi. It is wisest not to talk to Hida, this guy runs trains with his mouth full, and he is particularly heart-piercing. As far as the single dog matter, Kakashi is full of deep resentment against Hida. Arrive, you go, and report yourself, I'll go back first. Kakashi walked with Hida to a wider crypt, an iron door closed tightly, dividing the entire crypt into 2 sections, and 2 masked members of the dark department in front of the iron gate were looking at them. Kakashi obviously didn't have a good impression of Danzo, and they had already walked up to him, and they didn't want to go in and say hello. Okay then. Hidan watched Kakashi leave, and then said to the 2 guards who were guarding the door, please inform Danzo, Hida is here and wants to see him, wait. One of the guards said coldly, then opened the door and walked in, while the other stood still, staring at the flying section. Sitting at the desk to get Tuanzong, listening to the guard's report, he fell into deep thought. What does Fei Duan mean by coming to himself at this time? That day, he saw with his own eyes that Fei Duan used such a terrifying physical technique as the 8 gates of Dunjia, and the whole person increased to a level similar to his own, and now he had no certainty of victory in the face of Fei Duan. Even he had to cooperate with the Great Snake Pill in advance, but just when he was about to start that experiment, Fei Duan actually came to the door, always speculating about other people's Tuanzong in the darkest way, and had a huge suspicion about Fei Duan's sudden visit. Let him come in, notify all members of the route by the way, stand by outside, if there is any movement, immediately come in and subdue the flying section. Tuanzo ordered the guards. Then, Tuanzong crossed his palms and supported his chin, staring at the iron door with his one-eyed eyes, waiting for the arrival of the flying section. Bang dang. The heavy iron door was opened again, and Fei Duan walked in with a smile, looking at Tuanzong who was examining him. Long time no see, Master Tuanzong. Bang. The iron door was closed again, and Tuanzong in front of the desk showed a slightly frightened look for the first time, because he found that the flying section in front of him was like an ordinary person, and he couldn't really see the boy in front of him at all, and even felt that he didn't exist in this space. The two people in the crypt looked at each other so briefly, one with a smile on his face, while the other felt a heavy pressure, and his expression was not calm. Episode 30. In the silent crypt, Tuanzong secretly cursed in his heart. Why did this little ghost's strength improve so terrifyingly? And in a blink of an eye, it reached a point where even he couldn't see through it. He didn't believe that Fei Duan, who looked like an ordinary person, would really become an ordinary teenager, which was purely insulting his years of experience. Phew. What exactly did you come to me for? If you want revenge, or kill me, then I am afraid that you will face the pursuit and arrest of all of Konoha. Just like the rebellious Uchiha Itachi, you can only hide and be in the dark. Tuanzong said to Fei Duan coldly, with a hint of threat. Ha ha ha. Danzo-sama, do you also feel depressed and frightened? Fei Duan is like discovering a new continent, said playfully. How could this person who lived in darkness all year round have such thoughts as fear? I'm afraid he is just unwilling to fall on the way forward before he has established a career. Fei Duan understood so, but his mouth was unforgiving. If you just come to show me your mighty spirit and show your youthful heroism, then you can succeed and you can leave, or you can continue to stay here and I leave. Tuanzong calmed down, and he felt that Fei Duan's words did not contain killing intent. He thought that Fei Duan was because of the previous events to express the dissatisfaction and resentment in his heart, but because of his own status, he did not dare to touch himself. Thinking about it like this, Tuanzong's heart relaxed. As long as he didn't die, then even if he was insulted and trampled on his dignity, what impact would it have? As the dark side of Konoha, he has long given up the so-called dignity and friendship of ordinary people, and all he has is ambition, the ambition to let Konoha stand on the top of the world. Fei Duan's eyes revealed a maturity that did not match his grade. He saw Tuanzong's thoughts, and appreciated his forbearance. A person who did anything for the end, but always insisted, also made him appreciate, and turning such a person into a pawn of his own would be even more pleasant. Master Tuanzo, this is not a good place to talk, or let's change the place to talk, okay? Fei Duan's pupils instantly turned scarlet, and the kaleidoscope of Shinwei constantly rotated in the pupils, exuding a strange beauty. Tuanzong's face changed drastically in an instant, and he couldn't figure out why someone other than Uchiha would have a kaleidoscope chakra eye. At this moment, his thoughts were full of thoughts, all kinds of speculations, doubts were skipped in his heart, and he even wondered if the big snake pill betrayed him and helped Fei Duan obtain the Sharingan. Although he had doubts in his heart, his hands did not sit still in the slightest, and the seal of the wind was constantly condensed, and his mouth shouted, alert. Just when the root members outside were about to break into the door, Danzo's ninjutsu was about to take shape. Kamui. The left eye of the flying section rotated extremely quickly, and where Tuanzong was located, a spatial vortex instantly appeared, and the terrifying attraction instantly sucked Tuanzong into it, and then disappeared. And the figure of the flying segment also disappeared into the crypt with the spatial vortex of the right eye. Bang! The iron door was broken open and smashed to the ground. Danzo-sama! Danzo-sama! The oil girl took the root and brought all the root members in, but the entire crypt was empty, and there were no figures of Tuanzong and Fei Duan inside, and there was not even a trace of a fight. A trace of coolness, between the members of the root, continued to circulate, and cold sweat unconsciously oozed from their necks. Kaleidoscope Sharingan, another space. Who are you, exactly? Danzo did not rush to move, but asked loudly, but in his heart he constantly cursed the 3 generations of Hokage and Tsunade. He believed that they caused Hibito, a strange person, to enter Konoha, and would cause great damage to Konoha. Is Lord Tuanzo actually in the mood to ask who I am and not care about my situation? Fei Duan said playfully. The sea full of blood, the dead and scorched island, the entire space is silent, even the boundless sea of blood is silent, and the sky is gray, there is no light, sun, moon, and stars. This it is a dead space, Tuanzong explained to himself. It may also be a fantasy space created by the flying kaleidoscope, and Tuanzong still knows enough about the Sharingan. Psychic art, dream taper. Tuanzong bit his thumb and slammed it against the ground of the isolated island where he was. A huge psychic formation instantly formed, and after the white smoke, a huge monster appeared. The dream taper has a fat body, for slender and sharp claws, large mouse-like ears, giant teeth like saber-toothed tigers but reversed to the sky, a long elephant trunk, a thick beard on the lower jaw, and a dark yellow body. As soon as it appeared in the space of the sea of blood, it emitted a roaring red, a huge mouth, and a terrifying wind swept towards the flying section on the sea with a terrifying attraction. Are chess pieces showing their value? But your strength is so weak, I only admire your ambition. Fei Duan whispered, allowing the fierce wind to carry him towards Mangekyo's stomach. Tuanzong stared at the flying segment. He didn't think that the flying section would be solved so easily, and even in order to prevent the sudden outbreak of the flying segment, he chose the combat method of taking the lead first. Take out 2 small ninja darts and put them on the index fingers of both hands, and spit out a rich wind chakra in his mouth to gather on the ninja darts, and the ninja darts rotated rapidly, and the wind dart's chakra turned into a larger ninja dart, making a friction sound that tore the air. Swish. Swish. 2 huge shurikens went straight to Fei Duan, and Fei Duan was attracted by the wind of the dream taper at this time, and the 2 ninja darts that seemed to tear everything apart rushed to Fei Duan's side in the blink of an eye, and went parallel up and down. It was as if to cut the flying segment into 3 segments, completely dividing the corpse. The solemnity on Tuanzang's face gradually dissipated, and the general meaning of Fei Duan was something he did not expect. He was confident that his wind escape and the killing move of main taper, in the absence of defense, was almost certain death. But Danzo did not completely relax, but began to continue to seal. He could not relax, because after the destruction of the Uchiha clan, when he searched for the relics of the Uchiha clan, he found a strange and unfathomable secret technique, and it is a secret technique that only those who have the Sharingan can perform. Izanagi,